And now here's part 2 of our episode. I'm honest about these groupings. These groupings are...
I love it.
Yeah, this is a beautifully... What's your sign, Michael A?
Capricorn.
You're Capricorn. Okay.
I'm actually a super Capricorn. My boyfriend used to do readings and get paid for it. He doesn't do them anymore, but he has a program and looked at my stuff, and everything except one of my planets is a Capricorn.
Wait, everything?
Yeah, everything. Like I am. He said you're a super Capricorn. So. Yeah, I, and I'm not going to lie to you. Are we starting recording? Because I'll get into
it. We're recording, baby. Okay. We're here.
This is one thing that this album really connected with me on accepting who I am, right? Because I grew up a theater kid. I grew up a stereotype, a homosexual in some ways. Like I sang, did this. In high school, I used to. So every other year, one year they did like a Broadway review, and then another year they did like random songs, right? So every time for the Broadway review, it was like my second year there, and I'm like, this is boring, let me make it more entertaining. So I went to the choral professor and just said, I'm going to MC this. I just did it myself. I was just like, I'm just going to take control of this whole thing, and I'm just going to do it for him.
That's very Capricorn.
And I know, very Capricorn, right? Because I'm just like, there's no rhythm to this. Like you're just making a pamphlet and listing, and they're just going to walk up, sing their song, and let's make this entertaining, people. Yeah. So I just did that in high school. And I mean, with high school, you get ridiculed and you're growing up. So you're understanding all of that. And like what we talked about previously, how that external stuff comes in. And at the time, I was not prepared to take so much negative stuff in, and I would take it to heart. So I spent so much time hiding my Capricornness and how much I love lists. And I love walking into an office supply store, and I adore label makers, like these things. Like I just fought all my life to like, oh, I'm artistic, I shouldn't be this way, I can't like think in these like very one directional process oriented ways. And then after like this album like came out, and I just really started to accept who I was as a person. And I started to realize as I am as a person is I love lists. Like, give me organization. There was a quote that I went to college for theater performance, and one of the quotes that my playwriting and acting and directing, he did everything anyways. One of my professors said that you find freedom in structure. And that speaks to me so clearly as a human being, more so as an actor, because that's all we want is like, if you think of your daily routine, like everyone has A to B to C, and then they walk out the door. Like everyone has that routine, and everyone wants that same normalcy, but there's so much freedom in how you get there. Right. Yeah. And so I fought so hard to like not be this process person, being like, no, this is not me. I have to be whimsical and run off the seat of my emotions and not logical and all this. And then I just accepted the fact that, like, no, I like to think, and I like to overthink, sometimes to the point of it's a problem. And I can't like, and my boyfriend says I lecture him, which if he listens to this podcast, he'll probably call this one of my lectures. But like I get into this just rhythm where I call it like mouth, like knowledge vomit. Like it just comes out. Like I'm just speaking of how I'm feeling, how I'm going through things, but it is. And I love it so much to dissect things to the point that they probably shouldn't be dissected. So that's very Capricorn.
That's not the point, right?
That's fair.
Exactly. You found the perfect podcast. You found the perfect podcast to come and do a lecture on Lizzo. Like this is exactly what we want. So you get 300 points for
lecturing today.
300 points for a beautiful lecture.
I hope you refer to me as guest lecturer in the.
Well, and I'll tell you what, we could pay you what higher ed can pay guest lecturers these days, which is very little.
Zing! Ooh, somebody's an nice professor. There's a Flaubert quote about he says, be neat and organized. I'm paraphrasing. Be neat and organized in your regular life so that you can be wild and free in your creative work.
Yeah,
it's true. I think is pretty. That speaks to me.
That's the first time we've brought Flaubert into the podcast. That's
do I get some points for Flaubert?
Yeah, I think you do. You get 5 points for your
5 points pour Monsieur Gustave.
Votre citation de Monsieur Gustave Flaubert.
Félicitations à moi.
Okay. Right, we got our French out.
That's amazing.
So when you were trying to decide on which albums to bring to us, we asked you, to pick an album that was perfect. And as you know, we do not define that word for you. So what were your standards of perfection when you came to this album?
Well, you guys are going to love me. I have 4 reasons why.
Bullet points. I love
it. Capricorn. Lyrics, the unexpected, a message, empowerment. Oh, there's 5, and sexy. Those are my standards for perfection. If you can hit all of those in whatever means anything is, like, give me good lyrics in one part and you have a message and I'm unexpected and it empowers me and there's a little bit of sex appeal, I'm enjoying it. Done.
Can you say more about that second one, the unexpected? I want to know more about
I have bullets and reasonings.
You have
for all
bullet points? Oh, I love it.
Of course
my God,
I
this
do.
is great. This is great.
So the unexpected, the song titles and the music style of what we are trained in this world that we're in right now of what songs sound like pop songs or what a love song should be or something like that. This album is full of things that are just musically unexpected with what comes out of it. And I think Crybaby is a very good example. And Water Me, 2 songs that, like, if you just said maybe on a Celine Dion album, you would think something completely different, right? You would think something like a ballad would be coming out or something like that. And so Lizzo, not knowing that no one knows who she is, chose very specific song titles, very specific ways to start each song. Like we talked about previously, 'Cause I Love You. Just ways to, I think, trigger all of us off guard when we're listening to it. And I think that made us all focus on her, right? Like every song you start and you're just like, I don't want to just change this. But I think there's some songs out there where I'm like, I know where this is going. Let's just move it. Like, let's go to something else. That's where unexpected is for me.
Well, that's one of the main criticisms of pop music, right? Is that it's just not, it's cookie cutter.
It's 4 chords. Yeah.
Exactly.
Whatever that is. Yeah.
And she does incorporate a lot of pop production, like a lot of the most popular mechanisms in pop music. There you can see a lot of those, whether it's just kind of like the tonal quality to certain instruments or kind of the arrangement of certain elements. But I think you're totally right that she does it in an unexpected way, both musically and lyrically.
I will say also that's one of my criticisms of contemporary theater too is nothing's unexpected. Just want to put that out there as well. As long as we're coming for higher ed, might as well come for contemporary theater too.
I love it. Well, I mean, I'll come for anything that doesn't challenge things, because I think a lot of times, and especially when you throw business into things, like whether it be music, theater, anything, like you get stuck in that cookie cutter or that like expected, like when you hear of a show being put on, like no offense to Rent because it's a good show, but you hear it being done again and you're like, okay, we've seen this show 6 times, why? Like, what is it challenging now? Like, give me something new. And I do think I'm 33 years old. I don't know if you gentlemen are in the same age, but I think that this generation is in this time of change. And we got stuck in, or I got stuck in that like computer, non-computer age. Like, I remember taking cursive and typing class. Like, I remember having to learn how to use a computer and also like have a history book that I carried around because I had to have it with me. And it speaks to us, I think, as people, in like what our likes and dislikes are doing to changing the market in terms of pop culture or anything of that nature when it comes to music or anything. And things that are progressing are things that are being unexpected, or like hitting challenging things of mental health or self-love or things that we don't talk about. They're being put into the forefront because of that reason. And I think she just hits that on every point in this album too.
Yeah. Michael being a few years older than me, we sort of straddle a line. We straddle a line between his understanding of what 90s pop culture was versus what mine is. And we talk a lot about the snark. We talk a lot about the cynicism of a lot of art in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think that we've seen a move away from that. We've seen a move to where cynicism is exhausting for us. maybe it's, maybe it is like the compounding of all the crises that we are experiencing as a people right now. But we do want something that is affirming. We want something that is, I'm craving something that at least is affirming of potential. There is great potential in this album. You feel opportunity, you feel a hopefulness. And it's not to say that you have to be Pollyanna-ish about it, but you do want to feel like there is something that, for lack of a better word, that life is worth living, that it is
100%. I think we as a generation understand pain in any sense of the word, right? Like we've lived through a lot of death, and everything in our life growing up was about anger and rage and a lot of bad things, right? So we understand visually what pain is. But now I think we want to get out of it because we're trying to live in this world. And then the generation after us, they're seeing it from their perspective and just being like, okay, you're thinking that way. I need to think 10 steps ahead of where you are at. So they're going off in a completely different direction that is supercharged. Yeah. That is something, and so I think, I'm with you on that. I agree.
The Zoomers, the stakes are even higher for the Zoomers.
Exactly.
It really, it's all speeding up.
It's going too fast. That's
and
I'm not trying to be like cranky old man, but I just think that I directed a show in grad school and then also outside of grad school that was about bullying. And
great show.
It's called Moth by Declan Green. And I mean, one of the things we talked about in that process, because the whole premise of the show is it's these two characters who are reenacting the night of a bullying incident. And you discover by the end of the play, I'm about to give away the ending, spoilers, but that the incident has already happened. Not only that, but one of the characters has already died because he has a mental health break over the course of the bullying incident. And he thinks that like he's been tasked to save the world and he gets shot by cops at the end. But along the way, the other character is living with the guilt of having not done anything or stepped in. And we talked a lot about like what that guilt is like, and also just how much more difficult it is for people of younger generations to grasp the emotional impact of things that they say or do. Because when you type something online, you don't see what happens on the other end. So I don't want to say there's a lack of empathy, but I feel like the fast-paced way we're moving, it's kind of diminishing a little bit our ability to empathize with others and to realize the impact of what we say and do to other people.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I think I think there's that fine line of speed. I think that the speed is good because we're getting a lot out of it, but I agree that there needs to be things that slows it down. And I think one aspect is people need to understand the interaction is the most important thing. Like whether it's human interaction, but like communication is not typing and then returning and typing and type. Communication is understanding what is happening in front of me and reacting to what's in front of me, body language, sound, everything. Right. Yeah. And I think I agree. Technology does take that away a little bit, but now we get Google glasses that translate in real time. So you can't get upset with the way that it's going. Like,
right. I'm not upset. It's just, I mean, Westworld is starting up again. I don't know if you've seen Westworld.
Yeah, I saw the trailer too. Yeah.
I sort of feel like, I don't know, we're turning into a lesson for one of my classes, so I should probably move on to something else. Actually, this is a good segue to this. Have you ever seen Lizzo live?
I have not. So interesting thing about me, I hate live concerts.
Okay.
That's fair.
I know it's just a lot of people and listening. I have watched live concerts and I love watching it. So when they give options to like, oh, you can zoom in or stuff like that, like count me in. I'll gladly watch and be entertained. I just don't want to be around a bunch of people listening to music. I would rather listen to music in my own way, right?
Is it something about the standing? Is it different if you're sitting in a theater listening to a concert?
It's about the humans.
Say more. If you don't mind.
Humanity is dumb. And I also am dumb. I'm guilty, but I just, I have a limit of dumbness that I can happen. And when there's a lot of dumbness around you, it just shorten, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's the people,
the chaos element.
Yeah, the chaos. And it's also like, I'm all about comfort. Like I dress for comfort. Like I live my life in that sense. So like, I don't want to be standing shoulder to shoulder with people and listening to music when I know I could also just be at home with headphones on. Like I'm like, I could be there. Like that's entertaining. And that's it's fair. Yeah. So that's the only thing why.
So we talked about in terms of the perfection of this album. Let's go back a little bit to the these things that you had, because so we had the unexpected, and I think that is a point that has come up a lot in our discussions, is something that catches you by surprise. So I appreciate that that's one of your points. We have talked a lot about like what the thesis of this is, but like when you're talking about a perfect album, and you're saying the message is an album, or is an element of it being perfect, is it that it has to be a particular kind of message, or is it that it just has to have a point of view? What does that criteria mean to you?
No, great. It is a point of view, a message, and I think a message not as an album as a whole, but if you're going, my motto in life, at least what I've come to now to realize, is if you're going to take the time to create something and put it out into the world, you have to question what is the purpose of it. Not like the purpose can be simple. I'm not saying the purpose has to be complex or anything like that. It can be, I just want to entertain people. Yeah. But what speaks to me on anything is when you put something out there and it has a deep connection it's trying to reach people with. Right? Like it's a story that they're trying to connect with a certain group of people, and it's any point of view. And I think this album, in every single one of the songs, like I did when I separated it, like they have different points of view on similar topics, but overarching, it's a similar love yourself feeling, right? This love yourself mentality.
So then let me ask, what is the difference for you between the message element and the empowerment element? Because is the empowerment element a part of the message element, or how are those two things different?
I think they're different because I can, I mean, as a professor, you can end something, a talk or anything, with a message saying, don't do drugs. But I'm not empowering you not to do drugs. That's two different things. Like there's like, it makes you want to do something. We all went through DARE. All I got was a t-shirt, and now I smoke very heavily, and it's legal in Chicago. So I learned nothing. Right. All right. Yes. So like empowering is wanting you, like literally getting your ass off of a seat to go do something, kicking your brain into gear to like make yourself do something creative. And I think these songs, every single one of them, I think has an aspect of empowerment in it. Even Jerome, or even Crybaby, like these slower songs, or these songs that are talking way more about pain, are talking about how she is making the decision to do these things. It's not someone's telling her to do it. She is empowering. And I just get I get reminded that I am in control of some things, and being something that's very interesting in my growth as a human and therapy is I've learned that feelings are not facts. Also a quote from RuPaul's Drag Race, if you watch it. Basically that's my therapy. But it's such a true thing. And the best kind of example I explain it to people, right, is when you are grieving, right, and emotions are very heightened. A glass falls on the floor and breaks. You start crying. You're not sad at that broken glass. It is a reaction from the amalgamation of everything pressuring down on you for what's happening, and then you just release it. So feelings and these emotional things that we go through as humans, we need to remember that, yes, they are just that. They are feelings. I'm not angry and at like a person and I hate them. It's just like, I'm frustrated with this moment. Like, what is going on in my brain that's making me angry? Like, let's really figure that out. Yeah. I'm not like trying to that. And so like, it's something that I've just really thought about. And I think empowering, and through these songs that Lizzo goes through, is she's empowering people to do that, being like, look, feel, cry, emote, be who you are and have these emotions, but understand that you're still a human that needs to pick themselves back up, and you can pick yourselves back up and be stronger and move forward and keep going. And I think that's throughout the whole album that way.
I love that, because that's something that's beautifully articulated, because it's the idea and the tools. You have to have, you have to be given, and the best teacher, you're totally right about that being an element of teaching as well, where you're giving a great teacher gives you the spirit of the idea, the like point of view and worldview that you need to interface with whatever you're trying to learn, but then also the tools to put it into action and actually use it for your life. So well said, 1,000,000 points for that.
You better be keeping track of this, and this season I better have the most points. I better have people
you already do. Me. You already do. Don't worry.
It's all about winning. It's all about winning.
I think we're going to call this the Achenbach method. By the way,
yes, I love that.
Attacking the brief from this angle is henceforth called the Achenbach method.
You're going to be referenced on future episodes.
I appreciate that.
I've got a question, and I don't mean this question to be a pushback. It's more, I'm just a genuine curiosity. I'm wondering if you think that an album like this Lizzo album is a good tool in someone's mental health journey. And the reason I ask that is because earlier this season, we talked about the polar opposite album for this sort of experience. We talked about 9 Inch Nails' The Downward Spiral as being representative of someone's descent in, like, specifically in, like a mental health state. And we talked a bit about how sometimes when you're in a depressive state, you need to hear someone else say those thoughts, because it confirms for you that you're not alone and that someone else is going through this. Whereas something like the Lizzo album feels to me like it's nothing but empowerment and self-love from the beginning. But I've been in depressive states often in my life, and there are times where hearing this album would be the last thing I would want to hear because of my state. So how do you, if you were going to recommend this album to somebody, like, would this be something you'd consider to be part of like a mental health journey? Or I don't know, what I said a lot of things. What do you have to say?
You did. I love that look. First and foremost, I think to say everyone's depressive journey and way to do that, and I know you also believe this, Michael. I'm not putting words in your mouth, I know, but like they're all different. Everyone has a different way that they react, right? A perfect 2 example is my sister and I are complete opposite end of the spectrum when and what we need when we have emotional things going on in our life. And I wouldn't say no to the question, but I wouldn't say yes. I would say I think there's a lot of different reasons why. I think that you as a person need to, like you said, be ready to listen to something empowering, because there are moments like depression to me, just there's kind of 2 things going on for my depression, is that like there's this internal sabotage voice, right, that just is telling me that I'm not good, telling me I'm terrible. But then there's also this like darkness, and that darkness it can be physical and wearing me down. It can be just like a cloudiness, like it's just this darkness that's just anything good, it's just snuffing it out, right? So that's kind of what I struggle through. And what I found is when I allow myself to listen to for me it would be Evanescence, My Immortal. When I allow myself to listen to that and like get into that state, I would find it hard to get out of the cycle. I would find it harder for me to break it, because I was feeding the beast in a way, which sometimes it's good for people to, give it what it needs and then move on, because you're like, fine, I entertained it. I saw my brain understands it, and then let's move on. For me personally, I found that I needed to fill those voices that were sabotaging me, or these voices that were telling me I wasn't good, with the empowerment. And with the empowerment and acknowledgement of pain, because I think so much of the time empowerment doesn't come with the acknowledgement. And it's just like, go do your best, go get it, girl, awesome, you're fantastic, slay. But no one's saying like, what are you slaying? Like, I'm slaying a dark monster that I'm fighting every day because I don't want to get up in the morning some days. Like that is what connects with people. It's not, that kind of answers the question. I guess I could go on and on about that specifically. I think I truly think the misconception of what mental health is, and maybe specifically depression, because I'm very close to it, is it's so similar to everyone. And I think the only similarity is every person that I've ever met with depression has a different face. And it's the face that they put in the public versus the face that what's in private. And I don't think that the faces need to be the same. I think you can have two different faces, but you can't have those two different faces battling each other. That's where you become, two-faced. That's where you become this person, because like your private and your public are two different people versus the same person reacting differently in different situations.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like I don't need to show the public me crying my eyes out for something painful that happened. Like you don't need to see that about me. Like I'm going to lock that away, but I will talk about it with you, and I'll talk about it openly, because I know the pain that I feel will get somebody to learn, or like it'll help somebody in the future. Yeah. But like it's too, and I think a lot of people, exactly what you said, they think that they have to be that same, and it's not true. Like we are complex humans. Like,
I'm not going to say, there are some jokes I'm not going to say around my mother or my grandmother.
Yes, exactly.
And then my sense of humor will manifest itself differently in this space. Or
exactly.
You know what I'm saying. That's that there isn't, it shouldn't be that you have to be one way all the time. You can be many ways.
Yeah.
And I also think from an artistic standpoint, Lizzo just probably knew deep down in herself that she was never going to make the Downward Spiral. That wasn't the album that she would make. And if she did, it would be horrifying, probably.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It'd be so painful. Like it just pain. Yeah.
But the truth, the truth of something, like if we're looking at art as the pursuit of truth in whatever media you consume it in, then like I think that's why both of those things must exist, probably. Is that there has to be this manifestation that comes from Trent Reznor and comes from, his pain, his processing of pain in that way. And then Lizzo obviously processing her pain and coming to a completely different place. And both of those things are essential, in my opinion.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, I think it's time for us to look at the scoreboard, Tyler.
You're right. We could talk for hours about this, Michael A. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over the scoreboard. We're going to look at all the points that are up there, and then we're going to you're going to have to make a very serious closing argument. Very short, but very serious. None of this is funny. Just so
no more jokes.
No more jokes.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm gonna run it back from the most recent points you got, which were you got 1 million points. You had 1 million points that you got.
Not small, but okay, I get it.
For your mental health, for sharing your perspective on mental health. I think it's definitely a conversation that Michael and I are passionate about, and I'm glad you brought it to the forum. Then you had 300 points for it was I put down a beautiful lecturer. That's what you are? You are a beautiful lecturer.
Yes.
So you got 300 points for lecturing us, and we're grateful for it. You got 3,000 points for your groupings of songs, which will henceforth be known as the Achenbach method. Patent pending.
Take note, all listeners.
1,400 points for What Is Love. Baby Don't Hurt Me.
Baby Don't Hurt Me.
777 points for your lyric reading of Water Me, and then your following lyric readings. I think that was thank you for actually bringing in your proof. And then you got 6 points for a nice healthy cry while walking your dogs. Then add that
both
to the 4 nails did and 3 hair tosses that you gave Michael for his recap.
Yes.
And my 5 points.
Don't forget, your 5 points that you got.
My 5 points for Monsieur Flaubert. And that is where our board stands right now. It's a very strong board. You might have the most points ever accrued on this one goes to 11 ever in history of the pod. So just in brief, any closing statement you'd like, anything you'd like to leave the listeners with as your closing statement for the perfection of this album?
Yes, there are 2 things. The first one is, I'm crying because I love you. Never been in love before. What the F are effing feelings for? Once upon a time, I was a hoe. I don't even want a hoe no mo. Got you something from the liquor store. Little bit of Lizzo and some mo. Try and open up a little more. Sorry if my heart a little slow. I thought that I didn't care. I thought I was love impaired. But baby, I don't know what I'm gonna do. This album speaks to what you need to be as a person to be the best person that you can be. in living life. I think people wait so long trying to figure out what life is as a definition and what they need to do in life. And I think at the end of the day, it's just loving who you are and understanding that love is the nasty and love is just looking at yourself in the mirror and understanding that you got good and you got bad, but you're going to walk out the door with your head held high. And I think this album encapsulates all of that.
Amen, man. Amen. My God. My God, Michael Achenbach. It's too early in Los Angeles to be crying on this podcast. Well said. Michael O.
Yes. You don't need to say anything else. It's perfect.
It's a damn perfect. Michael Achenbach, thank you. Thank you so much for this. What a beautiful way.
Thank you.
What a beautiful way to spend a day. We need to before we tell what our standout track was from this, talk about your two podcasts that you referenced earlier, and maybe you might be seeing you might be seeing your friends from This One Goes to 11 on that podcast soon.
I'm super excited. Yes, you guys are going to be guests. So I have two podcasts. First and foremost, you can follow me on social medias, which is Achenbam, which is ACHENBAM, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, everything. I just like putting stuff up that I like. But I have two podcasts I host. One is called Your Nerdy Obsession, which these two gentlemen will be on. What we do on that podcast is dive into people's obsessions. I challenge them to tell me about where it started, what about it is, what makes them tick, why is it an obsession, what did they love about it, and then I challenge them with some trivia. So it's going to be exciting. You two gentlemen chose Radiohead, which I think your listeners here will be very excited about.
Our listeners will not be surprised.
And then the other podcast, we are currently in a hiatus because we are revamping kind of the structure, but it's called In the Jar. And In the Jar is basically whatever's in my head I like to record. So it's my random podcast that I just like to do. And we're revamping it to be a style of more educational and dealing a little bit more centered around mental health and things like that. So that'll be coming out in the future. For now, you can follow me, like I said, on Achenbam on socials, and also Your Nerdy Obsession is Your Nerdy O on all the socials as well.
Amazing.
And we'll put links to all that too in our
awesome. Cool.
Sure
Thank you.
Yeah. So
Tyler, I actually want to propose something.
Yes.
I think because Michael has done such an excellent job with this pod, I would like to let him pick our final standout track as well.
Oh, yes. I think that's a great idea.
Because honestly, I mean, like, listeners, the track that we had chosen, you've all already heard it. So I think Michael, you've made such an excellent case. What do you want the listeners to listen to last?
Yeah. Yes, we are putting you on the spot.
I think it's a great way to end this podcast, but they need to listen to Boys.
Yeah. No, it's great. So, and listener, that's only on the Deluxe edition, remember.
Yes, it is. And I already quoted that one, so I don't need to read those quotes again.
They're ready for
I love it.
They're ready.
That's a great one. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. This has been an absolute pleasure. You are firmly within our Friends of the Pod pantheon.
I love it. I love being friends with many pods.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Boys.